City of Albuquerque, its police department, and the U.S. Department of Justice are now working on a plan and an agreement to make major and sweeping changes with APD. The agreement could take months, weeks, even years. The feds are expected to install a monitor at APD to make sure these changes actually get made. And they stretch from training to supervision from the top of the department all the way down to disciplining rank and file officers. The DOJ, as you know, has been investigating APD for 16 months. Its whole report is spelled out right here in 46 pages. It was released just yesterday. News 13's Alex Goldsmith read it and has all the details right now.
What we found is a pattern or practice of systemic deficiencies that have pervaded the Albuquerque Police Department for many years.
That's the big picture of what the DOJ found after digging into APD. But the devil is truly in the details. When it came to APD's string of police shootings, the feds concluded a majority of those from 2009 to 2012 were unconstitutional. The report found APD officers frequently used force on people who posed no threat, sometimes even escalating the situation themselves. More troubling, the DOJ says Internal Affairs, which is in charge of punishing cops who stepped out of line, was asleep at the wheel.
Improper force incidents were not properly investigated, documented, or addressed with corrective measures.
The feds found an aggressive culture within APD, one that's put police at odds with the community they're sworn to protect. It's a big set of problems, and the report includes a long list of solutions. It calls on APD to beef up its hiring and training standards, teach officers to better deal with the mentally ill, and completely overhaul its IA unit. Those reforms are likely to cost millions of taxpayer dollars to put in place, but could save everyone money in the long run.
The city has been subject to multi-million-dollar verdicts for its excessive uses of force, and as a result, has had a drain on taxpayer resources that we hope these reforms will alleviate.
Alex Goldsmith, KRQE News 13.
And APD's SWAT team is in the crosshairs of the Department of Justice investigation. The report found the SWAT's leadership is deficient. Its commander has not been adequately trained. There is no clear command structure, and officers often do whatever they want. News 13's David Romero has more on this angle this morning. He is downtown at police headquarters. Good morning once again, David.
Good morning, Matt. Well, the SWAT team is supposed to be the elite, the officers who are sent into the most risky and intensive situations. That's not what the feds say was happening here at APD. Now, the DOJ says too often in Albuquerque, the SWAT team makes those intense situations worse. The report says that SWAT cops often run roughshod over the department's crisis negotiators in what the feds call, quote, a culture of aggression. The SWAT's nearly rogue history dates back to at least 1997, when criminal justice expert Sam Walker wrote a report with eerily similar findings.
Which was almost like a semi-autonomous unit that didn't seem to be under command and control like the rest of the department, and there was a high rate of shootings.
Even if the supervisors wanted to keep an eye on the SWAT team members, the feds say that would be kind of hard to do because too often the SWAT team members fail to turn on their cameras on their bodies or their helmets. Matt, back to you.
All right, thank you for the update this morning, Mr. Romero. The DOJ also says there's a big problem in how APD hires and trains officers. The feds want better screening and better training to be a top priority here. The feds also want stronger background checks on new and lateral hires. For example, one lateral hire was Officer Keith Sandy, who was recently involved in the killing of homeless camper James Boyd. That's the video from the foothills that has gone viral. Cadet training is an issue too. For instance, 38 officers graduated in APD's 100th cadet class. That was back in 2008. Many of them, we found out, have been fired for misconduct. The feds say the academy trained cadets to believe violence was the best and often the only way to resolve tense situations.
This is no longer an acceptable way to proceed. But what our findings do mean is that more needs to be done by the city and by the police department to ensure accountability and to give you the tools, the training, and the guidance that you need to enforce the law vigorously while defending the public's right to be free of excessive force.
The feds also say APD should require all officers to get a valid psychological exam before hitting the streets. Many of APD's problems started under former Mayor Martin Chavez and Ray Schultz, who he hired as police chief in 2005. In a brief statement, Schultz says he has not read the report yet, but that APD has the same goal as the community to reduce and eliminate deadly force encounters. Mr. Chavez did not want to talk about the report yesterday. It was during his administration that hiring standards were relaxed in the big push to get more officers on the street. Martin Chavez did write an op-ed in this morning's Albuquerque Journal. He says the situation at City Hall is, quote, so serious and the need for facts so great. However, he is compelled to set the record straight right now. This morning, he says that political hacks such as Darren White and Rob Perry were hired and allowed to micromanage APD, and city coffers were flung open to the lawyer cronies of the current administration. Former Mayor Marty Chavez also says APD Chief Gordon Eden should step down. He also defends what he did with the police department during his time here. We'll have more on that, I believe, coming up in a minute. Well, now the families of those killed by APD officers are feeling vindicated by the DOJ's report this morning. For years, they have been saying APD is overly aggressive, and the DOJ now agrees. Here's News 13's Kim Holland.
These three things are like, whoa.
As we poured through the DOJ report with Mike Gomez, he kept finding things that he's been saying for a long time.
Here it is, who pose a minimal threat. See, this is another thing. Who pose a minimal threat in situations. And the officers heighten the danger and contributes to the need of force, see?
His son's killing is one that the DOJ report calls unjustified. SWAT officer Sean Wallace killed Alan Gomez in May 2011. Alan, who had mental and drug issues, was involved in a domestic dispute. As other officers tried to talk him down, he was suddenly shot by Wallace, who was acting on his own. Wallace claimed he thought Gomez was armed, but he was not. The feds say Wallace acted recklessly and on his own authority. The city paid the Gomez family $900,000.
How did you take this report?
I took it as a hard look at what is going on. And this report is going to conclude that there has to be some accountability now.
Shooting victim families were front and center at the Fed's news conference, bonded by grief, united in emotion. The most outspoken, Ken Ellis Jr., searching for justice for his son.
APD officers too frequently use deadly force against people. There you go.
Officer Brett Lampiris Tremba shot Ken Ellis III as Ellis held a gun to his own head in 2010. A jury awarded the family $10 million. The DOJ said Lampiris Tremba used unreasonable force and failed to de-escalate the situation. Ellis's father says today's report gives him hope that change is coming.
It vindicates what we've been beating our drum about for the last 4 years.
The family members say the Fed's findings are a good start, but they want criminal charges against officers too.
This is not the end of anything. This is just the beginning.
Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
The Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office will be meeting with the feds today to see if it can help implement some of these recommendations. This after the feds say most of the shootings the DA's office found, quote, justified were anything but that. The DA, Carrie Brandenburg, here says she is not surprised by the report, but says her office's review process of police shootings is transparent and that her office reviews the shootings under state laws, not federal ones.
I have to follow the law, whether I like it or not, whether I agree with it or not, and there's many times I have to struggle with it because I think what would be right is something that we're not allowed to do under the law, that we have to operate under.
The Department of Justice says it did not look at the district attorney's office's role in monitoring the police.